Hi and welcome to the Auction and Antique News. My name is Jason Harris and welcome to our final edition for 2017. We are screaming right into Christmas time, and of course the news across the world is slowing down as auction rooms tend to do their last sales and close up for the year. Anyway, let's have a look at what we have, starting with international news. And a map hits the headlines as the headline act of the Christie's Books and Manuscripts auction. There was a 16th century map, one of the first believed to have been done. It was one of 5 by Martin Waldseemüller. Now this was withdrawn from auction just due to concerns about authenticity, and it was expected to sell between £600,000 and £900,000, which is between $1 and $1.5 million. So very lucky they withdrew it at the last moment. And into thong news. Now we don't do a lot of thong news or sandals. So there's a pair of sandals that were once worn by Lawrence of Arabia. Now Lawrence of Arabia is Thomas Edward Lawrence, and he was part of the World War I expedition to Arabia, and he was involved quite heavily in the Arab revolt against the Ottomans, and was hence nicknamed Lawrence of Arabia. And you might have remembered, I think it was a 1960 or 1962 film of the same name. Anyway, back to sandal news or thong news, and the ones worn on your feet. So there's part of a collection of Lawrence's that were unearthed in the UK, and along with the thongs there's also Lawrence's book The 7 Pillars of Wisdom, and it's expected to fetch between about £1,000 and £2,000, which is really not a lot considering they can still be worn. And they're also coming up for charity auction to raising money for the Samaritans over in the UK. Mick Jagger, Charlie Watts, Stephen Fry and Dame Vera Lynn are amongst many celebrities who have donated scarves, ties and jewellery to raise money on an online auction for the Samaritans. Into art news. Now remember last week we talked about the 40 or so works from Banksy that were sent from the UK over to the US. Well, these have come up for sale. Raised about a total of $1 million US, which is about 1.3 million Australian. And there was a record set for Girl with the Balloon, which you remember we covered last week. That's ended up selling for about 110,000 US, which is an amazing considering I think it was about a $40,000 to $60,000 price guide. And on to other art news. A 17th century work by Nicolas Poussin called The Holy Family was up for auction in Paris on December 19th, and is expected to achieve between about £300,000 and £400,000, which is about $500,000 to $700,000 Australian. Now this was once owned, and this is the great part about this story, it was once owned by Lucien Bonaparte. Now this is Napoleon's younger and much taller brother. And into more news about Old Masters, and we finished the series of Old Masters auctions which have been held through the UK and Europe in the last 2 months. And there's a piece by Old Master artist El Greco entitled St Francis and Brother Leo in Meditation, and that's sold for a staggering $10.3 million Australian. Now this was part of an estate by or from Stanford Z. Rothschild Jr. and there was a total of about 51 pieces of art or thereabouts which has been put up over November and December. Now what's interesting about this, he bought this piece of art in 1996 for about $2.3 million Australian. So that's a 436% increase. Now that's outstripped the stock exchange, or certainly the Australian Stock Exchange, which has had around about a 300% increase in the same period of time. And that leads me on to a larger article I'm writing at the moment about investing in art, and we'll cover that off in 2018. Now on to local news. A small section of the Eureka Stockade flag, or the Eureka Rebellion flag as it's also known, has come up for sale in Moss Greens, and that's sold for, including buyer's premium, $32,400, and we're talking a piece around about yay big. Now it was the Eureka flag, or the Eureka Rebellion flag. Now it was in 1854. A lot of you know about the Eureka. For those who don't, they call it the Stockade or the Rebellion. It's the miners against the government at the time for excessive mining licenses and rates, and you know, they were given reasonably bad time. 27 people died in the Eureka Stockade, and that was held at the Eureka Diggings, a mining camp or mining town in Eureka. Now, the Eureka flag was owned or retained by Trooper John King's family for around about 40 years. And then in 1895, they lent it to the Ballarat Fine Art Gallery. There it was loaned to the Museum of Australian Democracy. Now, the shame about this, about 30% of the flag had been lost in pieces as it was given out to dignitaries who'd visited over the time, which is a real shame. We're one of the few countries who've probably ever cut up a flag of such significance. I can't imagine them cutting up the American flag or the flag of independence at the time. But anyway, 30% of the flag was lost. This is one segment of that flag which is recovered. So amazing outcome, $32,000. Not sure who's bought that yet. Hopefully it's going to be donated back to recover, fragments of the flag. On to more local news. Scammells, that's us, are holding our final year sale. This is a Christmas clearance auction, 100% clearance rate. Amazing sale. We're going to have around about 950 lots, but 100% clearance, no reserves, no guides, everything to be sold. And that's it for the news. As I said, news pretty slim this time of year. So I'd like to wish all of my viewers or our viewers a very Merry Christmas. Thank you for viewing. We've had 5 episodes now of the Auction and Antique News. We'll continue on very strongly into 2018. So have a great Christmas and a very, very great new year to you as well. Join us back in January for 2018 as we continue throughout 2018 for the Auction and Antique News. Have a great one. This is Jason. Thank you.